Here's one that you might be hunting. This is Old Rip Van Winkle 10-year. It is a wheated bourbon, comes from the Buffalo Trace Distillery, and it's one of those hard to find allocated bottles. People call it Pappy 10. Technically, it's not Pappy, as you can see from the bottle, but certainly comes from the same wheated mash bill as the Pappy line, and this is the 10-year offering. So, comes in at 107 proof. And the street price for this runs these days probably $600 to $800. It's a lot of money to spend on a bottle of bourbon. The MSRP is probably under $100, but I don't know if anybody on the planet pays that kind of price. So again, the question is this: so is it worth the money? Well, there's only one way to find out. So on the nose, it's got a beautiful aroma. I'm a big wheated bourbon fan anyway, but this one has this it's very gentle. That's the best way I could describe this. There's some gentle oak. There's maybe some pecan, maybe like a maple kind of smell. Very sweet. I mean, you don't smell any ethanol. It's just like this very gentle, pleasant kind of aroma. And on the palate, it's very nice. It is just this, it's like a super chill bourbon. I mean, everything is kind of pleasant, tasty. There's nothing harsh about it. Get some cherry, get some vanilla and caramel, typical bourbon notes for sure. It kind of gradually goes into this super pleasant oaky finish. A bit tannic, not really spicy. Overall, it's great. The first time I had this, the way I described it was maple syrup over buttered pancakes. It doesn't taste exactly like maple syrup over buttered pancakes, but the maple syrup part, there's definitely that pecan mapley kind of thing that I think is really nice. But the buttered pancakes to me is just like, it's got this silky mouthfeel. Again, just pleasant, easy, and really nice. Is it worth $650? Personally, look, if you get the money to throw around, sure, but not really. I think there's plenty of other bourbons out there that are going to be pretty close. Now, having said that, maybe this is one of them. So this is Weller Antique 107, one of my favorites. And this also isn't necessarily so easy to find. Easier to find certainly than Old Rip 10. Same recipe, exactly the same wheated mash bill. This is 10 years old. This is probably 6 to 8 years of age. So the question is, and I've seen this come down in price. So again, I think the MSRP is probably like under $60, but street price in New York, and New York is not a cheap place. These days, I've been seeing this for like 110, 120. So it's come down from, let's say maybe a year or two ago, where I saw it typically for like 170. So I see that price coming down. So let's talk street price. So let's just say 120 for argument's sake, and 650 to 700. So the question is, how different are they? It's 107 proof for both of them. Same recipe. This is just aged a little bit more. So let's go back and forth here on the nose. Very similar, as you'd expect. I have to do this. I'll have to redo this in a blind because obviously there's a psychology to this too. But what I think I detect is a little bit more fruity sweetness on this one, and a little bit more, again, with that age. And I see that with a lot of bourbons, that as they get up in age, the oak notes kind of ramp up, and they will somewhat take the place of some of those other sweetie notes. Now this is sweeter notes. This is still very balanced, but on the scale, this is more fruity, sweet, cinnamon, that kind of thing, where the 107, the Weller Antique 107 versus the Old Rip, which definitely has a little bit more of that kind of dusty oak kind of note. So let's see how they taste. Antique 107 is such a nice sip to me. It's certainly in the top 3 of my favorite bourbons. Fruity, easy. As a wheated bourbon, it doesn't have like the longest finish, but It's just, again, it's a nice, pleasant, easy sip versus the old Rip 10. And it's exactly what I would expect. You can see the similarities, but with that extra couple of years of age, it's again the oaky, those gentle oak notes are a little bit more prominent. It's certainly not over oaked or bitter, but it just kind of gets mellow, like it kind of tamps down some of the brightness a little bit. And they're both really good, but this is certainly not harsh or anything like that. But they're pretty darn close. Maybe in the old Rip 10, I don't get that strong like cinnamon baking spice note that I get in the Weller Antique 107. Yeah, still fruity with those great notes and just with that extra maturity. So, is that extra maturity better? These are both terrific. But having said that, if you're in a place where you can get your hands on this, this is not, the old Rip 10 is not 6 or 7 times dollar-wise, I think, in my opinion, better. Definitely, you know, if you can get your hands on a bottle for a couple $100, I mean, I think, you know, certainly to have one to share with your friends. I mean, there's a certain cachet to this, and I don't discount that. I mean, I think it's kind of cool. You know, you call up your buddies and you say, "Hey, I got an old Rip. I'm gonna pop it." They're gonna come over. But having said that, they're not that substantively different. That if you can get this, and I like in places like Ohio where these are, you know, available. This is not a store pick. I know sometimes the store picks can be even more special. But they're pretty darn close. And I think this is a good study in exactly the differences here. A little bit more age. And this may be that good and bad with the age. It kind of tones down some of those bright, you know, happy notes, which I don't necessarily think are bad, like the cinnamon and the bright, like baking spice. But again, with the extra age, and no different if you drink wine. I mean, there's some like young wines that I happen to like, and then you'll drink like an older wine. But there is that trade-off, I think, between the oak and that sort of those, you know, tannic notes, which this it has maybe a drop of, versus something that's a little bit younger. So both are terrific. And this is not groundbreaking news, by the way, but you know, I think if you see this on the shelf for, you know, I mean, I see this as much as like $9.99, like on the shelves in New York. I just think that's ridiculous. I think that there's plenty of other bourbons that you can get. And if you want to kind of get outside of the, you know, Buffalo Trace, you know, weeded mash bill realm, something like this something like this Rebel cask strength, I mean, is a great substitute. Where is it? I don't know where it went. Many of the Maker's Mark wood finishing series. I mean, there's a lot of under 100 and sometimes under $50 weeded bourbons that are absolutely delicious. Like something even the Maker's Mark 46, which you can get for, you know, under $50. It's not exactly the same, but it's awfully darn close. And my suggestion to those of you who are watching is the only way to really separate the hype and the bullshit from the reality is to taste them blind. So if you have a friend or if you've got a collection, you got to set up a blind tasting. Take a few shelfers, you know, like Maker's 46 or Penelope Architect or the Rebel, and mix it up with, you know, some of these other, you know, fancy schmancy ones, and taste it for yourself and put them in rank order. And I think you might be surprised. So they're delicious. Again, the take-home message: delicious, but hopefully you know somebody, or you can get this at a more reasonable price, because it's certainly fun to have and open with your friends. So there you go. Hope you enjoy this, but keep in mind, I'm just a regular guy sipping whiskey. Thanks for watching.